Chapter 2 is all about establishing common ground with your readers and trying to find a connection that will make your readers more likely to read and respect your ideas. So I do encourage you to read or review Chapter 2. Chapter 2 gives a lot of good examples of how to find common ground with an audience, and examples of people that have been successful at doing so. So I want you to first think about experiences in your own life outside the classroom where you have had to work with or simply talk with, um, or just encounter someone who disagrees with you or who sees things differently than you do. And sometimes that happens at the Thanksgiving dinner table, right? But on the job, with your friends and family, out on social media, you're encountering people who disagree with you. So I want you to think about the techniques and the approaches that you use to establish common ground with someone who disagrees with you. So maybe that's using humor to diffuse the situation, or maybe it's finding a part of the topic that you both do agree with, or maybe it's focusing on the fact that you have a common goal together. You know, say it's a coworker where you don't personally agree, but you both have the same goal at work, and so you have to work together to get there. So there's all sorts of ways to establish common ground with an audience. When it comes to writing, especially academic writing, one of the big things you want to be aware of is your language choice, and you want to avoid charged language. Now, there is a time and place for charged language, certainly in opinion-based pieces, certainly in online posts, right? Facebook arguments. But in academic writing, you do want to consider how you're going to be received as a writer. And if you find yourself using charged language, you might want to step back and say, how can I word this a different way? If you're writing your essay on an issue in higher education, maybe you're looking at high cost of tuition or even loan forgiveness, or you're looking at changing education requirements at the college level, whatever it is you're looking at, if you start referring to elitist professors or lazy college students, you're going to lose your audience right off the bat, right? Students are going to be offended, professors are going to be offended. So you want to think about how you're going to be received. Again, there is a time and place for loaded language, but often in academic writing, you want to try to take a more kind of objective stance. So do think about your language and how it might be affecting your audience. You don't want to turn people off before they've even heard your ideas, right? So when you're writing your essays, in addition to the loaded language and things like that, you also want to think about what does your audience already know about your topic, and what do they need to know to understand your main point or your essay. If you do choose a topic in higher education, for instance, you're writing in a college setting, you have classmates who are in college, you have your instructors who are in college, and most of a general readership is going to at least understand the concept of college and have been in some sort of classroom. So you might not have to do too much explaining there. But if you're going to write about, say, the community of horseback riders, most readers are probably not familiar with riding horses, and so there is going to be terminology that you need to explain to them, or experiences that they wouldn't understand that you're going to have to explain to them. So another way to think about your audience and establishing common ground with them is to make sure you're on the same footing as far as just the terminology, right? What are we talking about? Does your audience understand it? So that's another thing to think about. You also want to be careful then that you're not talking down to your audience, so you don't want to insult their intelligence, but just clearly explain things that they might need to know. So again, when you go back and you review chapter 2, I do want you to be thinking about these different ways that you can bring your audience into where you are, essentially, because the goal here is that even if, not everybody who reads your essay agrees with you, they can respect your ideas and see where you're coming from. We are fortunate in this first essay because there is a little bit of room for personal narrative here. You're looking at an issue in your community and you're coming at it from your perspective, and you're analyzing the reasons you think it's happening. And so often putting a face to an issue, right? Sharing a quick personal story, talking about your own experiences is a really effective way to establish a common ground with your reader, because even if they've never experienced it themselves, or even if they're not familiar with their topic, if they can read about a specific, interesting, vivid human experience, then they're a little more likely to listen to the rest of what you have to say. So do keep these things in mind as you're writing your essay. And then obviously when we get into our more research-based essays, there's other things to think about with audience, but this is the big one. So let me know if you have any questions or concerns about the readings for the first couple of weeks, and good luck on Essay 1.